I mean, if you look at your house, say your house is worth $1 million and you got $300,000 loan, most people say, I've got $700,000 of equity. They don't just say, I've got $1 million house.
Right.
But if you have $1 million in a 401k, I still have yet to meet the person who says, I've got $700,000 of equity in my 401k, but it's the same difference.
Welcome to Wealth Creator Radio, where we help people overcome the uncertainty of having enough retirement income. I'm your host, Eric Heckman, a certified financial planner with over 30 years of experience. We want you to enjoy life and not have to wonder where your money will come from and how long it'll last. My mission is to show you how to develop a personalized income plan so you can retire more and have worry less wealth. Here at Wealth Creator Radio, we cut through the noise and get straight to what matters. We understand that the world of retirement planning can be filled with confusing products, ever-changing tax laws, and volatile markets. That's why we're here to help successful people like you navigate the uncertainty and create a blueprint for a thriving, work-optional life.
Welcome to our show where we talk about retirement planning. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Eric Heckman is president of Heckman Financial right here in Silicon Valley. He is a certified financial planner helping people like you have remarkable retirements. Gosh, he's been doing this for over 30 years. It is his mission to help you plan for lifetime income so that you can weather any economic storm and to transform your retirement worries, we know you have them, to confidence. Here's our phone number. You may call or text this number, 800-454-1184. You can text the word visit if you like to text. Call for this complimentary appointment and you can get the digital toolbox also today. It includes Eric's book that he's written and a lot of other resources all about retirement. You can always find us online anytime at Wealth Creator Radio. With all of that, Eric, I'm so excited to get started today.
Yeah, I know. It's really important to be planning for retirement. And that's what we're going to be here today doing, is going over some key things that people need to know about.
Listen to this, Eric. 1 in 5 Americans think they'll never be able to retire. This is according to a new Axios poll. So 62% of people who are not yet retired think that Social Security is not even going to cover half their expenses. Only about a third of Americans actually have a written plan, which is what you say everybody needs. So we are going to go over some steps people can take to make sure they are prepared for retirement. And I love it because we're checking off boxes. It's as easy as that. We're going to give a retirement checklist today. So I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's scary that so many people, 80% think they won't retire, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is, I totally agree with most people thinking that Social Security won't be enough. That's a given. And so one of the scarier parts is what used to sound like way, way, way in the future. Now in around 2034, Social Security is going to be only able to pay for about 80% of its benefits. And nobody, it doesn't matter which political party you're talking to, nobody's bothering to do anything to fix that. And that's really scary because that's going to get to be from a known thing that was easy to fix to a crisis, and never good when you're having to fix it in crisis mode, right? A lot worse. So, there is some things that you need to definitely take care of on your own. And, David Walker, who was the, used to be the controller of the government, in our movie that I helped produce, The Psychology of Retirement, he talks about in there that still half of everybody who retires, their only source of retirement money is Social Security. So when you say over 60% don't think it'll be enough, yet half the people in retirement are living on it, that should be something that hopefully makes people pay attention.
Right. Red flag, big time, Yeah. So we're going to go through this retirement checklist today. We've actually broken it down into some key categories, which actually is part of your toolbox: income planning, healthcare, risk management, tax efficiencies, and estate and legacy planning. Those are all points that you address in your toolbox, your plan for retirees. So talk about just in general your process, please.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you got to have an income plan. If you don't have that income plan, you're just unemployed, right? Because if you don't have a way to get income, how are you going to survive, right? So first and foremost, you got to have that. The second part about that is really investments, because obviously, where's the money going to come from? Okay, if you're lucky enough to have a pension, maybe, but for, like we said, Social Security. Beyond that, it's all your money. It's all your investments. So which investments are going to pay out how much, what's after tax do you get to actually keep, right? So that also then flips into taxes. Most people are ignoring taxes in retirement, and that is the number one expense in retirement is taxes. A lot of people say healthcare. It's like, boy, my gosh, it's nowhere near. Taxes are so much higher. Because if you have all this money in pre-tax things like 401ks, IRAs, you got to pay all that tax. And, healthcare, of course, pre-65, after 65 with Medicare, long-term care. And then lastly, legacy. Who's going to get your stuff when you're gone? Is it going to be somebody you like or the government or somebody else? So, we want to make sure that's all going the right place. So one of the cool things that we've set up in our digital toolbox that has, several different downloads of things like, will your money last as long as you do? Are you paying too much in taxes in retirement? The Social Security timing decisions, all that stuff's in there along with a great checklist. So we have a checklist that basically goes through, the things that you should take care of. And I'm pretty sure it's 34. The score is 34 is the high score. That's how many things you can get on there. But most people, when they take this quiz, they're 10 to 20 is their score, which is
not good.
Definitely not passing. Definitely not passing. Yeah. And so, but that's one of the things where it's like, okay, well, now at least you know what to focus on, right? Now you got a starting point. So, if you just want to keep something easy, you don't have to read much. It's just a 2-page checklist. We'll send that to you. All you got to do is text the word list to 800-454-1184. Again, text word list 800-454-1184 or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And thank you for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So happy to have you along with us today. So, all right, let's just first start with income. A couple boxes you need to check off that involve your income when you're thinking about retirement. Your budget, you've got to have that written budget. And then just an estimate of what you're going to need each year in retirement. Talk about how you help someone understand if they've saved enough to cover all those expenses in retirement, anticipated expenses, I should say.
Yeah, well, it's almost, I guess, comical in the way that it's also kind of sometimes sad. But when I ask somebody how much they spend, and almost always they'll know how much they spend, like on their credit card, every month because they have to pay the bill, right?
Yes.
And then I'll say, well, what about property taxes? What about insurance? What about, gifts that you give out? What about, I'll mention some of these other things and they're like, oh, well, those are just extra stuff. Well, those extra stuff is sometimes, double what you spend on your credit card bill, right? Annually. So, that's one of the things that just mentally, for some reason, all of us have this mental block of how much we really spend. So that's the most critical. You can make 1 or 2% more in retirement and it's going to barely move the needle. But if you spend $500 or $1,000 more a month, it can really destroy a retirement plan. And so that's the thing I really have people focus on. And so my no BS budget is you just take your last 12-month bank statements, total up all the withdrawals, and divide by 12. That is really what you took out of your account. That's, no lying. Now if you move some of that money to savings and it stayed there, okay, then subtract that off. But, or into investments or something. But yeah, I find most people, it's 20 to 40% more than they think. And so that's big because then going back to what you said is how do I know how much I need to have saved? Well, that's going to, once we know how much you're spending, then we can see if that savings amount or the savings amount you're on track for will really work.
So the other thing we need to do is, talk about how our income sources are going to be taxed. I think a lot of us, if we have a pension or Social Security, we can figure that out. But what about everything else?
Yeah, that's the part that, people just forget about. I mean, if you have $1 million house and you owe $300,000 on your mortgage, most people think they have $700,000 of equity. Well, if you got $1 million in a retirement plan, I have yet to ever meet anybody who says I've got $700,000 of equity in my retirement plan. But it's the same difference. It's, you just don't see the mortgage, right? The mortgage on your retirement plan is the taxes that you owe. And if those tax rates go up, which we know they have to because the federal government hasn't paid their bills since the 90s, we're just putting everything on the credit card. So at some point, that time's going to flip. That's why we need to make sure that we've got that taken care of. So, again, really what you want to do is know where you're at, know where you stand, and get a copy of that checklist. So all you have to do is text the word list to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word list to 800-454-1184 or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Are you happy with your Medicare plan? Even if you are, what was good for you this year might not be what's best for you next year. The team at Heckman Financial can help you sort through all the options to find the best one for you. Call now, 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. And, when you're building a house, you would never start construction without a proper foundation, right? Yet, surprisingly, so many people approach retirement planning exactly that way. They just focus on maybe one aspect, like, investing or whatever. And then they ignore other crucial elements that actually help provide essential support and stability. And so, Eric, I want to talk about that right now. Tell us the essential pillars that we need to help form a confident foundation in retirement.
Yeah, no, certainly. Well, the big one that's surprising, I think, to most people is the number one thing that you spend money on in retirement is actually taxes. Most people think it's healthcare. Nope, taxes are going to be the biggest one for sure. So having a tax efficient strategy while you're working and even when you're retired, I mean, the tax nightmares that you can hit and the line mines that you can hit when you're retired, you get to pick your own tax, which sounds weird. But you do actually get to pick your own tax brackets and depending on how you take money from which accounts. And so that's a big key one. And that ties really into actually having, investment management style for retirement. So when you're working, you just want grow, right? You don't really care. But when you're retired, no, it's about dollars coming out, not dollars just growing. So now you need to have cash flow. You need to have stuff that's paying you money, ways to get money out of there. So that's one of the big ones. And of course, that ties in with having income, right? So if you're having dividends, you're having other things that are paying out. So that way you don't have to sell stuff because, depending on what year it is and what month it is, you could either make a lot that month or lock in some huge losses if the market's down that month, right? So,
Yeah.
we've all seen that from month to month, it goes crazy. So really all three of these are really just kind of intermingled and tied together. So income, investment, and taxes, yeah, they're kind of like triplets, I guess. They they hang out together and they're always around each other. So yeah, you need to have a coordinated plan for all three. The hard part is a lot of people don't have much of a plan for the taxes because they have a tax person that has nothing to do with their investments.
Yeah. So true. And think about it, the retirement landscape has changed so much than what previous generations experienced. So talk about the specific challenges, that happen when all these three pillars are supposed to work together, but what are the challenges here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all have a pension, right?
Yeah.
No, right? Yeah,
Wrong.
very few of us, yeah,
Right.
very few of us have pensions now. And it used to be this three-legged stool concept, and I actually had that when I first started out, actually in the '90s. I had that as one of the little pictures I would show people.
Yeah.
And those three things was your pension, Social Security, and your savings. Well, Social Security, I don't see any politicians trying to go save it, and it's going to have issues in 2034, 2035, where
Mhm.
it's not going to be able to pay all of its bills. So that one's a little shaky. Most people don't have the pension, so now it's a one-legged stool, which is really hard to sit on. Um,
Very
so,
hard to balance.
really good balance. I need to be in the Cirque du Soleil then or something, right, to be able to sit on the stool like that. But and so that's the scary part because now it's all on you. And of course, markets go up and down, markets bounce around. So how's that going to play into you trying to withdraw money on a monthly basis? That's going to wreak havoc on stuff. So that's why you need to have a lot better planning at that time. And then of course, healthcare is going to always be there, always getting more expensive, and we haven't been paying our bills, and we're still not paying our bills. It doesn't seem to be whichever party is in office. Neither one wants to pay their bills. So
Mhm.
yeah, we're still spending more than 100% than what we make. And you and I both know that's crazy. You can't spend more than you
Yeah.
make, and
Right.
and somehow the politicians don't get that. And
Yeah.
they say, "Oh, here we're make things more efficient, and then we're gonna also spend more than we make still."
I know.
So that's not how that works. So you
Right.
got to spend less than you make, and that's the only way to get ahead.
Right, exactly. So I want to focus on the first pillar here, tax efficiency. Okay. And this is what you guys do. You work with your
Mhm.
clients, help them create these tax efficient strategies. Why is this sometimes overlooked as far as retirement planning goes?
Well, I think the biggest problem is most financial advisors aren't trained in tax, and vice versa, right? Most tax people aren't trained in financial matters. So, there's really nobody looking at it. And so, if you have somebody separate for your taxes and somebody separate for your investments, or you're doing your investments on your own and you're using software for the taxes, who's looking at those strategies? I mean, one thing that ever since the Fed rate hikes went up, I was telling people, watch out, you're going to be now making a lot more interest, and that interest has no withholding. And then all of a sudden, people are like, why do I owe more in tax? Well, that's because your point oh 0.01 is now 4 or 5%, hopefully, or three at least. And, you're making more money, but you're paying tax on that, even if regardless if you use it or don't use it. And then also, if you start building up a lot more money in investments, then that gets higher and higher. So a lot of times people say, "Oh, I'm just going to buy an S&P 500 fund and I'll be all set." Well, the problem with that is, even with that S&P 500 fund, they have to distribute the dividends. If companies merge and change in the S&P, they have to buy and sell those stocks. So there's a lot better ways, tax efficiency wise, to have what they call tax loss harvesting, to do more direct investing. And so there's a lot of different tools out there now. And people I'm always amazed how many people just go, hold it, you pay tax on Social Security? You pay tax on your 401k? These are things people need to know, right? And a lot of times they don't see that. And if you look at your mortgage, if you look at your house, say your house is worth $1 million and you got $300,000 loan, most people say I've got 700,000 of equity. They don't just say I've got $1 million house.
Right.
But if you have $1 million in a 401k, I still have yet to meet the person who says I've got 700,000 of equity in my 401k. But it's the same
Right.
difference. You got that
That's
loan,
true.
that tax bill. So
Yeah.
one of the things we set up as a digital toolbox, and one of the cool offerings we have in there is, are you paying too much money in taxes in retirement? Social Security timing decision. A copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even a way to meet with me, Eric Heckman. So all you got to do, super easy, is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or you can download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
We thank you so much for spending part of your day with us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial, a certified financial planner. And at Heckman Financial, they can do everything that you need for retirement. They focus on retirement. And, understanding these three pillars that we're talking about, tax strategies and investment strategies, and then an income plan, understanding the three pillars is crucial for someone having a very stable retirement. Talk about how you help people evaluate the strength of each pillar in their current plan, Eric.
Yeah, well, the easiest thing is we've got some great software where we can take somebody's tax return, give you a really super easy, clear to understand report on your taxes. One thing it includes that almost no tax software includes is this little thing called IRMA. Sounds like a nice old lady, but she's not. Um, Sorry to any IRMAs out there, but no, IRMA is a thing where if you make too much money, which right now is around 106, if you make too much money, then you actually start paying more for your Medicare and Part B and D premiums, and they can keep going up. So I was just meeting with a client who needed to buy a car, and she took some more money out of some stuff that was tax deferred. Well, we just looked at that. It's going to cost her probably $80 more a month in Medicare premiums because she earned interest
Oh my gosh.
and finally paid the tax on the
Yeah.
interest. So, that's one of those things that people don't think about when they're talking about their investments. Obviously, the risk score, how volatile are your assets? That's another big one. So we're analyzing those. And are you buying the same stocks over and over with different funds? So there's a lot of things that you have to look at. So once you have that custom income plan, you can really look at this and make some intelligent decisions, but without some sort of plan to look at, really hard to do. So, again, if you want to get a little bit more information about how we work and what we do, we can get that access to that digital toolbox, all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Do you know whether your retirement plan has any weak points? Discover ways on giving your financial future the proper tune-up. Simply go online to wealthcreatortoolbox.com to gain a better understanding in taxes, Social Security, and other ways to manage your portfolio. That's wealthcreatortoolbox.com.
Hi, glad to have you with us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. And most of us spend decades focusing on growing our retirement savings. But managing our money in retirement requires a very different approach. So, Eric, I want to talk about the second pillar that we've been discussing today, why it's so important to reassess our investment strategies as people near retirement.
Yeah, I mean, when you're working, most people, we all have all heard those phrases, just hang in there, right? Don't overreact, don't make changes and all these things, which works when you're not touching it. But there's a thing called sequence of returns. And, if you get the bad timing and you take money out, it's very different. So say your balance was $1 million and drops to 900, and then next year goes back up to million, okay, I didn't have any growth for those 2 years, but at least I got my money back, right?
Yeah.
But if your $1 million goes down 900 and you take out, say, $50,000 to live on, well, not only is it not going to grow back to the million, but it's going to be, a lot short because you cashed in some of those things when the market was down. So that's why you need to have three types of money when you're retired. You have to have some, the market money, stocks, bonds, ETFs, all that stuff. But you also have to have some foundational money, stuff that's either guaranteed by an insurance company, the U.S. Treasury, or a bank, some money that doesn't go away. And that way you can use more of your spending from there to be able to have enough money. So that way you're not, having to spend it down, when markets are down.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you want a little bit in what we call steady income money. And so for us, that's stuff that's, especially funds, stocks, certain things that pay higher dividends. And so if there's a lot of cash flow coming in there, so you get some money coming in every single month, then that's going to make it easier for you when you take those monies back out, right? So the key is all about cash flow in retirement. And most people don't really get that. And then they wonder what happens when the market goes down and how ugly it is, and then why their money didn't come back up. And it's like, well, so that's really why you want to really have a plan for that and to reallocate things, is really critical.
So, you just kind of explained we have to have the multiple income sources because we have to create that reliable paycheck from our savings in retirement. Is there anything else we need to add to that?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is you have to figure out what is that check, right?
Yeah.
How much are you going to live on? And man, I just always find out that people, not in a malicious sense, but they always lie to me about how much they spend.
About how much they
So again,
spend?
they spend. They say it's one number. I mean, I had one couple that she thought it was 6,000, he thought it was 13, and then when they did this exercise, it was 13,500. So
None of
she
them
had
are right.
no clue. She had no clue. He was pretty close.
Um,
But I find most people are about 20 to 40% off because they'll say, oh, yeah, well, this is how much I spend on my credit card. That's an easy one to look at, right?
yeah.
But what about insurances? What about taxes? What about other things? People ignore all these other little things that end up to being on average 2 or 3, 4,000 a month. And it's like, well, that's not a little thing anymore. That's a big thing. And so I think first and foremost, you have to do the no BS budget. And so what that is that's when we take your last 12 bank statements, and hopefully you're paying off that credit card from that bank account. So, in full. So you don't even have to look at your credit card spending, and just look at those 12 withdrawals, add them up and divide by 12. And that's really what you spent. Most of us will spend more maybe around Christmas time or maybe around somebody's birthday, right? There's certain times of the year, tax time, property tax time. Certain things that might spike up and down. So that's why you want to get a 12-month, nice smooth average, hopefully. And once you know that, you can subtract off what you're getting from Social Security. And that difference is the gap. And the gap is what your investments are there for. That's why you're putting that money away. That's why you're delaying that gratification and, hopefully having a bunch of money at retirement. And so, yeah, that's when you have to start going, okay, how much can I take out? Which source should I be taking it out? And then again, this is where you get to pick your taxes. Lots of times people say, oh, just defer, defer, defer. Well, now most people, their RMD is until at least 73 or 75. That's when you that's when you have that required minimum distribution where you have to take money out of your retirement accounts. But, I see a lot of people where if they're in the 10 or 12% bracket now, they'll be in the 24% bracket then. That's twice the amount of tax.
It
That's
is.
not 12% more. That's
Right.
100% more tax. And so lots of times people are giving up those low brackets to only have them have this insane tax problem in their mid 70s, which who would have guessed is your, you got tax issues in your mid 70s. It doesn't seem like something you'd have.
Yeah.
And so that's what we really need to look at is when you're doing these, trying to figure out that savings plan, figure out how much money you need, how should you be spending it? What's the best tax way year by year to lower your lifetime taxes? You don't want just a couple good years of no tax and then all of a sudden pay double the tax. And so that's the big problem is people really aren't focused on that. And, they really need to be. So that's one of the reasons why we set up this digital toolbox. It's got a report is, are you paying too much money in taxes in retirement? That's a good one, right? Social Security timing dilemma. You got a copy of my book, Worryless Wealth, some other reports in there. And then, also a link to set a time and talk with me, Eric Heckman. So, if you want to go ahead and grab that option and look at that stuff there, super easy. Just text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And thank you for joining us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. And we're talking about 3 pillars in your retirement plan that really work well together. You got to make sure you have tax strategies, investment strategies, and an income plan. So why don't you walk us through, like someone comes in to your office and they're a new client. Eric, how do you help them develop a plan like this? And it also includes, you guys also talk about how they're going to handle health care, and then you make sure that they have an estate and legacy plan as well.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, we always have that usually about a half hour, worry less wealth visit. So we find out what you're worried about and hopefully figure out how we can have you worry less about it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So find out about your situation, what makes sense to you. And then what we'll do is we'll actually have another meeting where we actually go through that blueprint. Now, most places would charge you for this. We're actually giving that away complimentary to people. So, so if it makes sense to proceed to go to that level, then we get a little bit of info from you. We get, what's your Social Security, benefit amount and where are your assets right now, in terms of what investments. And then we go in that meeting, we actually go over the 5 areas. So the first and foremost is what's the income plan you have now? You may not have one, but you're on, it's like you're on the freeway. You may not know where you're going, but you're headed somewhere. Yeah. So we're going to tell you where you're headed. And so once you know that's at least good to know, right? And we'll look at the taxes year by year. We'll look at your lifetime taxes, even look at what different market conditions could do to those monies. And then, we look at the investments and say, okay, what is the risk score? How much up and down are you going to have in that? Is that paying dividends and other things that you need? And then the taxes, of course, all 3 of these are very interrelated. So, which tax are you paying from, where you can take those monies from? How big's that lifetime tax bill going to be? And then like you mentioned, the healthcare, is it pre-65, after 65 for Medicare, long-term care. And then lastly, do you have a will or trust set up? Are your assets titled the right way? Do you have beneficiaries set up right? And that one's just more is everything in the right spot? And we'll give you feedback, yes or no, or things you might need to look at. And then after that, that's when people decide if they want to work with us or not. And then we can show them how we can improve the plan, how we can make that money last longer, make sure it goes all the way up to age 100. You don't want to be running out of money when you're 70 or 75. If it's 95, 100, okay, probably not a big deal, right? But you want to know that ahead of time because otherwise you might need to really change your plans, right? So Yeah. So if you want to, get a little bit more information, we've got a bunch of different great quick reads and a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and a way to set a time to talk with me, Eric Heckman. All you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Be sure to like and subscribe to Wealth Creator Radio so you can stay up to date on ways to build your wealth and create a retirement you and your family will enjoy for years to come. Like and subscribe today and create your wealth for tomorrow with Wealth Creator Radio.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. He is president of Heckman Financial. He is also a certified financial planner. He has the education and actually the wisdom and years behind him to help you retire. And if you have any questions, he is here for you. And speaking of questions, I'm going to get to our mailbag here in a moment, Eric, with a lot of retiree questions for you. But first of all, I just want to ask you, what are some questions retirees are bringing to you right now?
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, it's, how to downsize your risk. Things get volatile, and as you get closer to retirement, you're like, "Ooh, I care more about not losing it than I do about having some home runs or some big wins, right?" So, and they realize they can't afford to lose it. There's no time to make it up. You can't just hang in there if you're retired, right? Because you need the money.
Yeah.
And so there are some great guaranteed options out there. There's some stuff where you can sometimes earn up to double digits with S&P 500 if it goes up that high, but you don't risk anything on the downside. So, there's a lot of great tools out there. A lot better than there were, several years ago. So, definitely something to be looking for and getting some good answers on, because you definitely want to protect some of that money. So, for those bad years, which we know will always happen,
right?
About two to three out of every 10 will be bad. So. And that's going to happen during retirement too. So you got to have that money ready.
Okay. So the number again, 800-454-1184. You may call or text the word visit if you would like to do that with your own retirement question. Okay. So let's get into our mailbag right now, Eric. This first question is from Terry. And he says, I worked at the same company for 25 years. I had a 401k there, but they had a big merger. And now I'm not sure how to track down that account. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, well, first of all, Terry, don't lose your money. No.
Hang on to that.
Yeah, no, I actually had a client that had lost a 401k, and it was up to 80 grand when she found it. And I think she was like 5 or 10 when she, forgot about it. So,
oh my goodness.
So Terry, if you've been in there for that long, you hopefully have a huge balance there. But I mean, typically you can just, look at the old company or just call the company directly, or even just Google search if it's a big enough company, or you can find the benefits online, who it is. And I mean, they should be sending you something. So, definitely do that. And you probably want to roll that over to an IRA as soon as you can. So that way you always know where it is and don't lose it again.
No, don't. That's the whole goal here. Don't lose your money, right?
Yeah.
Don't lose it.
I mean, don't literally lose your money is first rule. And the second one would be don't lose it. Right.
Okay. Next question for you from our mailbag is from Craig. And he says, I've done a pretty good job keeping track of my budget and my finances my entire adult life. Good job. Why might it be so important then for me to have someone else do this for me in retirement? I bet you get that sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, great question. And Craig, and so, I mean, one of the things is maybe you don't, right? Maybe you don't need somebody to do it. Maybe you can do it on your own. Some people can. The harder part is also if you're married, will your spouse be able to do it if you're gone? I run into a lot of that where one spouse is the one who does it all, and then the other one doesn't really know about the finances, and it's quite sad and ugly when the other person passes away, and all of a sudden this person has no clue about anything, has to learn it all and figure it all out. So, it's good to meet with somebody else just for that aspect sometimes. But also the rules are very different in withdrawal because of, he's talking about he had a budget for his paycheck, but he wasn't creating his paycheck.
That's right.
Right. So,
yeah.
So it's one thing to have that budget, and the budget is a critical thing to know how much you're going to be spending. But in retirement, you also have to create your paycheck. So you have to figure out those various different accounts you have. You get 401k here, IRA here, whatever brokerage account, savings accounts, where is that check going to come from? Where are you going to get those various dollars?
Right.
Retirement's not about one check. It's about lots of little checks that add up to what that one check used to be. And so,
exactly.
So that's really where the blueprint to worry less wealth. That's what we do here is, we look at that and say, okay, let's take all those different accounts, that spending level, and let's run that out with taxes, inflation, and interest, everything, and see what that looks like. And is that money going to last? And if so, yay. If not, does it run out at 75 or 95? Because big difference between the two, right?
Yeah, 20-something.
And you want to know that now and not later on.
Right.
So that's the first part. And then looking at those investments, are they putting off dividends? Are they putting off cash flow? Because if you don't have the cash flow to get that money, how are you going to spend it? You can't it's not all about growth now. Now it's about actually getting money deposited into your checking account, right? To pay for those expenses. What's the tax ramifications along the way, the healthcare options, pre-65, post-65 for Medicare, all those types of things, long-term care. And then lastly, legacy, who's getting your stuff when it's gone? Are the accounts set up right? So that's the 5 areas of the blueprint to worry less wealth. And it's something we can help you with. If you wanted to set up a time to talk, we can set up a 15 to 30 minute phone call. All you got to do is text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit 800-454-1184 or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
We made it very simple for you, okay? We would definitely want to get your questions answered. So there are a lot of ways you can get a hold of Eric and our awesome team at Heckman Financial. And thank you so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric, and we're digging into our Wealth Creator mailbag. Next question, Eric, is from Michelle. And she says, my dad has always been a worrier. But now I'm afraid he's going to worry himself to death over every little thing, especially since he's constantly on social media. And there's always some big scary headline that he's sharing with everyone all the time. And I don't think this is healthy. Is there anything that you can share with me on how I can talk to him about the financial news that seems to be scaring him all the time?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference when I meet with clients that when they first retire, after about a year or two, you can see the ones who are more active and the ones who stay home more.
Really?
Because the ones who stay home more watch too much TV.
Mm-hmm.
And they start getting freaked out about everything because the only thing, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Is the old phrase. And so you only hear all the negative stuff. Mm-hmm. Social media, if you read one story and it was bad, it's designed to send you more of the same. And so, it's just those algorithms just beat you up, and it's awful. So, I mean, one of the biggest things, at least, my mom was our chief worrying officer, and, she did a lot of worrying. So that's why our process is called the Blueprint to Worry Less Wealth.
Yeah.
So one of the easiest ways to not worry is have some money guaranteed, have some money that's not going to go anywhere. It's guaranteed, can't outlive it. That'd be one of the things. Because if you have more of his money guaranteed, then whatever scary headline doesn't apply, right? And if it doesn't apply, you can then say, hey, Dad, ignore it, right? And, move on. But, so I think the biggest thing would be having more guaranteed, more protected. And then, the worries can be ignored. But, also maybe just get outside more or turn off the screens. Or
don't watch it. Get off the screens, whatever they are.
Yeah. There's too much of the negative stuff out there for sure.
Very good. Great advice. Okay. Last question for you from Will. And this is a good one. Of course, they all are. But what is your advice for someone who's 10 years away from retirement and doesn't want to make any big financial mistakes?
Well, first of all, we're all going to make financial mistakes. So, don't worry too much, right? Just, try to make as few as you can. But no, really, it's more about just getting lined up, having, where maybe you can do some Roth conversions. Maybe you can start, look at the tax treatment, start allocating stuff more to some guaranteed, locking in some of those numbers. That is the exact time when people should really be reaching out to us. Lots of times we have people talking to us 1 or 2 years, or like I had one recently, last week I retired, like last week. And now you're first now taking, meet with somebody, it's like a little late. So so definitely if you're getting close to retirement, that's the time you should be doing planning. That's why you should come visit with us. So set up a 15 to 30 minute phone call. All you got to do is text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit 800-454-1184 or book directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will the roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a great run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather the financial storm? Now may be a great time to have your retirement plan inspected. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial at 800-454-1184 now. Eric will examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial today at 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial. And we've come to the time in our show when Eric tells us a story. It's story time. Today, he's going to do a wealth success story. It's always a really good lesson or example to see how things can work out for the best with retirees. So, gosh, Eric, can't wait to hear what you have for us today.
Yeah, well, this story about, we'll just call her Liz, but, she worked in high tech and, did what you're supposed to do, right? Funding the 401ks and all that stuff. And, she'd built up a pretty good amount of assets, but she was looking at her house and looking at how much, houses are worth. They just, San Jose has, I think now, 70, there was some stat of 70% of the homes are over $1 million. So this was a couple of years ago, those even before then. But, she realized she could cash out and live someplace else. And she really wanted to move up to the mountains. So she moved up to Reno. And, up there, she, had the Four Seasons, right? Had, close enough to be able to get back to the Bay Area to see friends and still be able to travel and have fun. And so she's doing tons of fun, cool trips every single year. And so she's kind of divided the money up a couple ways with my help. We've got some foundational money, some money that can't go away, some stuff that's guaranteed for life, some stuff that's just got guaranteed principal but earns great interest rates. So we take that money out in those bad years, you're like 2022 where the market's down. Well, let's take the money from there that year for spending, and then she also has some steady income. We've got a lot of stuff that just says, low volatility, high dividends. And she's really trying to mostly live off those dividends. And that's what we've been, for the most part doing is just, using those dividends to pay for those trips, to have that fun. And then that allows the market money just to kind of keep growing and doing what it's supposed to do, right? Is bounce around with the markets, but over time get higher. And, by just kind of watching that and paying attention, she just look at her bills. She looks at her, spending level, and we recheck in with, with the income planning software that we use and make sure everything's on track year by year. And it's been going great. She's done Antarctica. She's done lots of crazy fun trips. She's about to go off to New Zealand and Australia.
All right.
And, doing all the fun stuff that you're supposed to do, right? They try to take 2 big trips a year and, really been getting out there and having fun. And, the other things, she keeps going to concerts, doing all the other fun stuff. So, she's not just sitting at home, right? Because,
good.
I think that's one of the big problems too, is people don't, especially when they move, they have to get kind of reconnected. So you have to find some charities to, or, places to volunteer or, at least groups to join and, make new friends and such. So that's, travel's nice because you get to see different things, get to do different things, but you also want to have some, human connections that we all learned after 2020, right?
Yes.
And so, so she's been doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. So that's one of the fun parts of my job, is sitting there and watching people go from, that working life into that enjoying life. And, it's been working great for her. Thank you for tuning in to Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Eric Heckman, and it's been a pleasure guiding you towards a more confident and secure retirement. Remember, my responsibility is to always do what's right for you, our client. Together, we can cut out that fancy sounding financial jargon that doesn't help and focus on what truly matters for your financial future. If you're ready to take control of your retirement planning and build a personalized income plan, contact us at 454-1184 and text the word Toolbox to schedule a complimentary consultation. If you're looking for more resources and tools to build your retirement future, don't forget to check out that Wealth Creator Toolbox, your toolkit for a secure and confident retirement journey. Until next time, retire more and worry less with Wealth Creator Radio.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.